Alright guys, welcome back to another voiceover breakdown. This week I'm looking at sort of a butterfly X style saddle entry, which I think is pretty cool. This is something that I picked up sort of from the Danaher Death Squad guys, and it's something that I've been playing with the last couple years, and I've had a lot of success with, and I think it's a pretty interesting setup. And we're also going to look at a submission called the Texas Cloverleaf, which is kind of a leg lacing position. Okay, so we'll start here, and to set this up, this is kind of an open guard scenario. Okay, and by open guard I mean I don't really have any sort of like solid control of my opponent. I'm basically in an open butterfly guard. I'm not starting with any grips. I don't have my legs wrapped around him in a half guard or a full guard. And this tends to be a very dynamic position, okay? So when I'm in this position and looking to attack, I have to be open to a lot of different options. It's never a good idea to just have, one setup in mind, because you have to kind of bait your opponent. You have to see what they're giving you, okay? So in this kind of demo here, one common reaction that I see from a lot of opponents is sometimes they'll reach out and post on a shoulder. Maybe they're trying to push you back onto your shoulder blades or break your posture when I'm sitting up. And so when my opponent reaches out here, I'm going to take advantage of that by, see this window he's created by opening his arm? I'm going to take a deep underhook with that, okay? Because if he's giving me that, I just have that opportunity to wrap my right arm around his waist, okay? So I get an underhook, and what I look to do with my lower body is I take my left leg and I put it underneath my right leg, and I make an X kind of in front of his shin, okay? So it's not really a grip per se. It's not like a guard. It's a dynamic position, so don't think that you can just sit here. What I look to do basically when I get this is close the distance as quickly as possible, okay? So when I say here, establish upper body position, I get that deep underhook and I close the distance, meaning I go from kind of a medium distance to a close distance. And what I'm looking to do is draw my hips underneath his hips, okay? So this is the first step in getting really deep underneath him, but what I need to do is get nice tight head position, a good deep underhook, and now I have to scoop my butt forward, okay? And that head position is really important because I don't want my opponent to get his head underneath my chin, because I don't have any leverage there. He's going to put me back onto my shoulder blades, and he's going to dictate the position. So when I have the underhook and my head is lower than his head, I'm winning this position here, okay? So that's what I mean by sort of tight head position and getting close to my opponent's hips. Another key here is getting that scoop grip, okay? So what I look to do with my left hand here is scoop underneath his right hamstring, okay? And when I say pull my knee to the pocket of their right hip, I need to scoot my weight underneath his and bring that left leg that was the trailing X leg. I need to pull his weight onto me and draw that left knee right into his hip socket there, right in the, I just call it the pocket of the hip. That's a John Danaher term, but it's a good way to describe it because you just picture like the pocket on your jeans, okay? So what I'm trying to do here is use that underhook and on my right side, and use the scoop grip on his hamstring on my left side to pull myself underneath my opponent here, okay? That's really important for me to start to pull him on top of me. But the goal isn't to just sit there with him on top of me. I'm going to now redirect him away from me, as you'll kind of see in this next slide here, okay? So I've got that hip pocket covered. Now you'll see what I do here is I off balance and frame, as I kind of make reference in this slide here. So I'm not trying to get his weight on me. I'm trying to get it up and away from me, okay? Because you can see my opponent here. What I want him to do is post on his hands, okay? Because then he becomes even lighter for me to deal with. By posting on his hands, he's supporting some of his own weight. And if he doesn't do that, he's just going to fall over basically onto his face, and we come up in top position. So more often than not, skilled opponents are going to base out because they don't want to be rolled over that easily, okay? But the key to this position as well is this framing. So the arm that was the underhook is now going to sort of supinate and go basically to his rib cage, and I'm almost doing like a shoulder press movement. It's not very hard to do because his weight is supported by his own hands right now, but it's really important that his midsection doesn't collapse on top of me, okay? So that right hand there is helping to build a frame to keep his weight up and away from me. And you'll see what I do with my other arm, okay? The one that was scooping under his hamstring. Now I draw that leg onto my shoulder, okay? Because that's really important, because now I have much better control of his hip and his leg because his weight is up on my shoulder. And you'll notice with my left hand, I'm scooping around his thigh. I'm not just content to bring it on my shoulder. I need to make like a scooping action to really get a nice grip on that, okay? So off balance and frame, and that's kind of what I'm referring to there. Up and away, that's how I want his weight. So we move on here, and we'll look at this saddle entrance from another angle in a minute, but what I'm trying to do here is basically illustrate that as I extend my legs to get that inside position, I'm also making sure that I have control of both legs as I fall, okay? So that arm that was on my shoulder, I have a scoop grip on it, and now as I fall, and as my opponent falls, I should say, I look to double up on that grip with my right hand as well. So as he falls, I have control of the trap leg that's triangled, and I have control of the secondary leg, which is on my shoulder, okay? So it's really important that you keep control of both legs when possible, especially in a leg lock scenario, because most of your opponent's defense is going to come from the secondary leg, meaning he can start to turn away, he can post, he can push off, he can kick out. So whenever I get the chance, I'm going to secure both legs, and that's what I'm doing here, okay? So inside triangle is the saddle. There's many names to it. It's called, the saddle. It's called inside senkaku. It's called the honey hole, the 411, cross ashi. It's got 20 names depending on, what team you train with, okay? So don't get confused if you hear that used interchangeably. It's all the same position. So here's a look at that X, and I'll just freeze it here for a second. You can see how the X is low on the knee, okay? So I'm not looking to put my left leg onto his thigh, okay? I'm looking to keep it in front of his knee, kind of as a barrier. I don't want to overcommit here to this position, because if things don't work out and I still get the underhook, I can easily transition into sort of a more traditional butterfly hook sweep, okay? So again, the idea of pairing these attacks together is going to make things more successful. So I'm creating this X in front of his knee, and I'm looking for that underhook, but I haven't committed to the position yet until I close the distance and I can get that scoop grip on his hamstring, okay? So we'll move forward here. I get that underhook, I scoop under, I drive him up and away. You can see the framing action here. And now when we get into this angle, you can kind of see what is called reverse X guard. So when I use the term reverse X position, what am I referring to? Well, as the name implies, it's a form of X guard, but my feet are switched. So in normal X guard, if I was using that position, you would see that my right leg would be on the bottom and my left leg would be on the top. That's traditional X guard. But in this scenario, I've just switched my hooks, meaning that my right leg is on top and my left leg is on the bottom. And you might say, well, why do you do that? Well, basically arranging my feet in this way allows me to get that inside triangle on his left leg. If my feet were my hooks were in the traditional X position, when I go to extend my bottom leg, it wouldn't result in an inside triangle on his legs. So that's all I mean by reverse X, is that I've just switched my feet, and it allows me to basically just drive my bottom leg through and end up in this inside senkaku saddle position. The beautiful thing about the X is that it's supporting his weight as well for me. And notice it's really clasped around his upper thigh, almost where his leg meets his groin, okay? I don't want this reverse X low by his knee, and I don't want my knees flared out. I want to create that X right where his hip meets his thigh, okay? Because that's really where I want to be to get a nice deep inside triangle when I go to this saddle, okay? And you'll see I kind of slow it down here as I drive that bottom leg through. That's really where the saddle position is coming from, okay? So as I extend my legs, it's really only my bottom leg that's driving through, and all I have to do is make a triangle because my right leg is already laced over top. This reverse X setup has got us to this position where all we really have to do is elevate and extend the bottom leg, and we're going to basically fall sort of very naturally into this inside Senkaku saddle position, okay? So you notice as he falls, I'm locking up that triangle, and you can see, I'm going to freeze it here for a second again, and you can see that as I fall, I'm supporting that secondary leg with both my arms, so I'm falling into a really nice and controlled position, okay? That's the key to this. I don't look to attack any leg lock before I have really solid control, okay? Because I don't want to do all this work and let my opponent get out very easily. He can still escape potentially, but I'm going to take as many options away from him as possible, okay? So we've seen this angle here, and now we're going to start to get to the submission, okay? It's called a Texas Cloverleaf. I have no idea where that name came from, but you could also call it a leg lace, okay? So it can be a submission in a couple of different ways, okay? The way that I'm doing it in this video is more of a calf slicer, but there are ways that you can attack the Texas Cloverleaf that sort of put more stress on the knee as opposed to the shins, but that's a bit of a different video here, so I'm just going to cover the way that I sort of apply it in this situation, okay? So what I'm looking to do is, first and foremost, I'm still maintaining control of his top right leg. I never want to let go of that leg because experienced leg lock people that are good at getting out of the saddle and defending and escaping, they're going to immediately draw the right leg away and start to turn out and start to really disrupt the position. So I try to make sure that I always have a grip on the top leg, and you can see with my right hand, I've still got a scoop grip over it. And if he starts to try to pull his knee to his chest, I'm going to try to fight that with that grip. In fact, the last thing I want him to do here is to draw his knee to his chest. I always say that if the legs are not about the same length when you try to apply this, it's not going to work as well. And so what do I mean by that? Well, let's take, for example, you see how his feet are more or less aligned? Imagine he drew his knee to his chest and his right shin was up by my knee and his left leg was way out past my arm. It wouldn't work that way, so I try to get good alignment, meaning I'll try to pull his top right leg and extend it to the point where both feet are basically parallel. Okay, so that's really important for this to work as well. So always try to maintain a deep knee line, extend that top leg. But what's critical is that that top right leg has to go over top the trapped leg. I see people that sometimes do this in reverse and it just doesn't work. Is it possible to finish? I suppose, but it's not the way the submission is designed. So I pull that top right leg on top of his left leg. And you'll notice what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to lace my forearm between both of them and more towards the end of the lever. I'm going to try to lace it so that my forearm ends up right where his ankle meets his shin. Okay, so that's really important to set this up. And so as we move along here, you'll see that I've weaved my left arm between his shins. And I start to talk about keeping everything tight. I find with most leg locks, especially this leg lace, if there's any slack or space in the technique, it doesn't really transmit the force through their leg, through their shins, through the ankle, through the heel. You really want to take away any space that you can, because if you leave space against experienced grapplers, they're going to find a way to pull their leg out, rotate away, kick out, post, and it can become really difficult to finish almost anything. So the points I make here about maintaining tension are this. When I lace my left arm through his shins, I like to start to do sort of a bicep curl action, almost drawing the legs to my face. because ideally I really want to get his left leg extended. I want it as straight as possible. And in order to start to help to do that, I start to get this grip and I start to draw the legs to my face, okay? You'll feel his legs start to extend, which is exactly what I want, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is gable grip my hands. So it's a clasping palm on palm grip. My one palm is up, my one palm is down, and you'll also notice that I draw my right forearm across his shin. So there's some downward pressure there, okay? I'm not just clasping my hands loosely. I want to make sure the blade of my forearm goes across his right shin there, okay? The other thing I'll do is I'll start to pinch my thighs together and I'll start to draw my heels to my butt. People in this submission often just focus on their upper body tension and control. And like arm bars, pinching your knees together and making sure there's a tight squeeze in the lower body, again, eliminates space and helps to drive all the pressure through the area that you want, and those are your opponent's joints. So again, I'm going to squeeze my thighs together, draw my heels to my butt, and I start to recline back. You'll see in this next slide here, I say, recline back and to the side. So the finishing details. I start to recline back because, again, I'm going to fully extend his bottom leg there, okay? You'll almost recline back to a point where you feel like you come to a stop because his leg is extended, and now all the force and the tension is going through his joints, okay? So I recline back, I've got my gable grip, I've pulled the legs to my ears, and now in order to finish this, I'm going to add a bit of upper body rotation. Now, doing this makes the submission more of a calf slicer. And what do I mean by that? I'm effectively driving his bottom shin into his top shin. That forearm pressure down on his right leg is keeping his top leg in place, while the reclining and the turning and the rotation is creating this shearing force where I'm driving his left shin into his right shin. And it's very painful. And again, there's a way to do this that we could fall to our side a little bit more and turn this into a bit more of a knee bar. But to be honest, different opponents will feel this submission differently. Some are going to feel it very strongly in the shins, some are going to feel it in the knee, and some are going to feel a combination of both. And so it can vary depending on the opponent. So this is a submission that can become very painful very quickly, and make no mistake about it, it can definitely do damage to the knees, the shins, the ankle. So go slowly with it and try to use control in all your leg submissions. Don't crank it. Be good to your training partners. Keep in mind that this is illegal in the IBJJF. It's considered a reap, so you might not want to do it to everybody unless they're familiar with the position, because I don't want to get you in trouble at your gym. But I think it's a good submission. It's one that you can apply in a very controlled manner, and I think it's been very effective for me over the years. That's basically a look at it. I know it's a lot of information, but I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Again, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, like, and share. Please leave a comment below if you enjoy these voiceovers, and I'll see you in the next one.